Hi, we're the Rambling Reviewers. I'm Sith King.
And I'm Sonic Sons.
Pacific Rim!
Pacific Rim was a good movie.
Oh my god, yes, best movie of the year so far. Of the year of 2013. We just got back from seeing it. Of course, by the time that you're hearing this, it will probably have already been out on DVD for a while. Or Blu-ray, whichever one you have.
Find out. Okay, so...
It's amazing.
The premise is very simple. Giant robots fighting giant monsters.
This movie is what would happen if XCOM, Independence Day, XCOM, Independence Day,
Godzilla,
G Gundam, and Evangelion got drunk one night and had made a baby. That is what this is, and it is made of wind.
It's basically monsters fighting giant robots, the movie.
Okay, honest to God, before we saw the movie, we were talking about how we would redo Evangelion if we had a say in it. Well, congratulations, I can now answer it in 2 words: Pacific Rim.
I would take Ava in a slightly different direction than Pacific Rim, but it was awesome fighting, and I want something that is as awesome when you have giant fights like that, definitely.
Yes. Oh my God, it was.
All right, so let's talk about what was so good about it.
Everything.
Yeah, well.
But aside from that,
the whole movie runs on rule of cool. If you're not excited at the prospect of giant robots fighting giant monsters, this will be a boring movie to you. You know, if that's not your thing, then like, okay, well that's the main meat of the show. It's like trying to enjoy a comedy if you have no sense of humor. But the thing is though, it didn't feel stupid as it did that. You know?
It felt awesome as it did that.
It felt, excellent special effects, of course.
There's a lot of special effects, a lot of CGI.
Everything's in rain, yeah.
But at the same time, when it's not focused on the robots beating the hell out of monsters, or monsters beating the hell out of robots.
Yep.
Can I talk about that? There is a lot of great stuff going on. I'm kind of in fanboy mode right now, but the storyline is good. It doesn't waste time on a lot of little nitpicky details that would have bogged down the thing. The main hero, his brother died. Okay, that's acknowledged. It's moved on. It showed how that affected his character. And then it moved on. He doesn't dwell on it. It doesn't control him.
Well,
it isn't like his only personality note. His brother died, and you see how that affects him throughout the movie. Also, the female pilot, Mako, she nearly got killed by a kaiju until she was rescued by
the black guy.
The black guy.
I forget his name.
Yeah, I honestly cannot remember names in movies for the life of me. But until she was rescued by the commander dude, that PTSD really shows a lot of. It helps establish a lot of what she's about.
Yeah, and they do that efficiently.
Yes. They show characters interacting with one another, and this is done very intelligently. The conversation does not feel stilted. It doesn't feel like, oh yes, well, as we all know, in 2606, aliens came through this warp hole that we all know about.
Yeah.
No, everything feels very natural. Feels like actual human beings talking. The sacrifices were deep and meaningful. The battles were intense. You can see the effect on the world in the few scenes we see the world, and how the world has changed in the 15, 13 years since the kaiju first appeared. You see people working on this massive wall all around the Pacific Ocean. But at the same time, you see some kind of really dark hints about what society has turned into. Like, if you don't work, you don't eat.
Yeah, and they again, very efficient. You saw that briefly, and then we moved on.
Yeah, it just showed a little bit of what the life is like, but it didn't, like, slam you in the face. Life has gotten shitty. Right. We have to do this, and otherwise we don't eat. No, but it established it very quickly, a few simple lines. Remember, people, okay, bad news, people, 3 people died up on the wall today. Good news is, I need 3 people to go up on the wall, because we have 3 openings. Remember, work to eat.
Yeah, and so that balance is so important, because so many movies would skip those details. You skip the world. You skip people's backstories. Just like fight, fight, fight. Who cares? And that would be dumb. Other
it would
times they would try to go, oh, we need to add character, and they would do it in a really clumsy way. They would take too long on it. Maybe not. Too long is dependent on how clever you are with it, because you could go, oh, it's a character study and we spend a lot of time on that, we fine. But if you spend a bunch of time and you have nothing to say,
Precisely.
or if you exaggerate things more than they should be, this is what brought up the romance angle between main guy and Mako, and it wasn't, they didn't like have a passionate kiss, they didn't like have sex right before their final fight, it was they're little hints. Because they're people and they have little hints, but shit's going on, so they don't have time to like really completely do anything.
And you get the
so
sense,
they don't.
and you get the sense that they're also like communicating on other levels because, well, part of the thing is that in order to operate the giant robots known as the Jaegers, you need to have a brain connection. You're literally thinking all the person's thoughts. So you get the sense that, you can see everything they're thinking.
That was a unique idea. I liked that. It brought.
I at first did not like that idea at all.
Yeah,
just
the
because
two pilot idea. Yeah.
Just because, well, I found it incredibly dumb. I mean, two pilots that just sounds like, okay, you move the left leg. Well, what happens? No, I said the left leg, not the right leg. Ah! I've literally seen entire cartoons about how that's a bad idea. Like, if one was the pilot and one was the gunner, then I could see that. But no, they actually explained why you needed to do that in universe, and they made it work.
And they made it work as a character thing. Is just so cool because it wasn't just there are two people here and like they hardly talk to each other. Like one of them is like the bridge money type on the starship. It was we share memories, and I love that sequence when he goes into Mako's memories because we see we what do we see? We another kaiju attack. B, we learn that the black guy is a pilot. C, we learn about Mako's backstory and how it relates to that guy and how she has sort of PTSD, so revenge thing against that. D, we got this great cinematography. This little shots of this girl, and it was very, when he had the long shot zoomed out, and you could see like over the right shoulder of, the Jaeger was standing here, and the monster was over there, and she was this tiny little blue speck amongst this gray rubble, and it was like, whoa, you really set up that shot. And it became memorable, and it was so dang efficient because that shot only lasted like 10 seconds, right?
Precisely.
That's all you needed.
Precisely. It was just good.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to describe it. It's just good.
It's
good storytelling.
It felt intelligent, I didn't hate half the characters as you do sometimes in these shows, and you're like, you're all just idiots.
Sometimes? Please. I've come up with a rating scale. Basically, a 10 is I want all the characters to live, and I am cheering for them. 5 is I want the bad guy to win. 0 is I'm cheering for the Reaper to come and eat the planets. Some things, like the Royal Candlelight Wedding, I rate as a 0. This was a 10, if not an 11. This was just good.
Even the guy the Australian guy, wasn't it, who was a dick, and he pushed him around and they got in a fight once.
Yeah.
Even that guy felt like a guy. His dad was there. He said goodbye to his bulldog, and you're like, so you're a dick, but you're also a person. That's so weird.
Yes, exactly. See, it's people being treated like people. People having dialogue. People having human emotions and human actions. That is what I like to see in a movie. This is what I want to see.
The two scientists we mentioned.
Yes, you'd expected them to either become like the Scrappy or just be annoying exposition spouters. Well, as you know, the kaiju are 200 meters tall and they taste like bacon.
Right. Or they become like this sort of background type. So it's like, here's the form. So here's like some details. Blah blah blah.
But no, they each had their own unique personality quirks, their own personality traits. They had their own story arcs. They did their own. They had their own moments of awesome.
Yeah. They formed a friendship along the way.
Yeah, and you could tell they barely could stand each other, but
and they once again efficiency. The guy, as soon as that one guy started talking, I was like, whoa, that voice. Like, what is that voice? There's this, and then the other guy, and he has this thing with his arm, and he does not say, I was injured 20 years ago, let me explain it to you, blah, 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 in a boring fashion. He just does this thing with his arm. You don't know what it is, but
actually,
he's a person.
That was because he was using a cane.
No, but, okay, it was not explained why he needed a cane, is what I meant. I didn't
Okay.
say it explicitly.
Well, you said he's doing something with his arm.
He's doing. I don't know. I actually
was
felt
like-
there was something up with his arm in addition to needing a cane because he moved it in a jerky way.
Yeah, his leg was whatever. But yeah, there was a. You want to know what's impressive? There was a kaiju black market body parts shop
Yeah.
where they butchered up pieces of giant monsters and sold them to people. And that was just freaking amazing.
The set design was very good. Yeah.
The place was clean. The place was well lit. There were actual physical props for the actors to interact with.
Right, and we were comparing this to the new Star Wars movies, where Plinkett very, very intelligently pointed out that so much was filmed on just green screen set, and there was all green screen except like a couple of stairs to walk on, and no one could interact with anything, and they couldn't look at anything, and very little happened, you know. And this, the Hong Kong slums, the bone slums, they called them.
Yes, they had people around them.
It
They
felt
had
real.
signs up there,
Yeah.
like that flashed and stuff.
Right.
Um,
They had the bones, you know, that made like a building kind of, and people were worshiping them and stuff.
yeah, they had bunkers so you could survive a kaiju attack.
Right.
Didn't fucking work, but
But yeah, it made sense that. You know, I could take this to another side of Star Wars, which is when, say, in the original trilogy, 3PO goes, "Oh, we'll be sent to the spice mines of Kessel, smashed into who knows what." And you're never told what Kessel is, but there's a little detail, like, "Oh, this is a bigger world. There is a Kessel. There is a spice mine. Apparently, I guess spice is important." All these little thoughts run through your head.
yeah, like they're like the categories. They say, "Oh, this was a Category 3 monster. This was a Category 4 monster. Oh my God, there's a okay spoilers. Category 5 monster." Well, I capped it there.
That's fine.
But you don't know what this different means. All you know is there's a big fucking monster that's eating cities.
Well, I was gonna bring that up in terms
There's a
of
big
the
fucking
bones.
monster, and they're eating cities. You know this, but at the same time, you don't get the feeling that there's a whole lot more monsters that you don't see. Heck, there's
a whole system of categorizing them, right?
yeah.
But I was gonna make that reference in terms of the bones when he says briefly, you know, some people worship these. That was my comparison to Spice Mines of Kessel, because we don't go into a whole other subplot, which you could do, about people who worship the kaiju. It was like, that's it. Here's the next part of the plot. We're
But
back
here's
to the
another
plot.
part.
Yeah.
Remember the hangar bay that they kept all the Jaegers in?
Hmm.
They said there was room. This place once held 30 Jaegers. Now it only has 4.
Yeah.
What happened to the other 26?
Yeah, apparently.
I want to know about that.
Yeah, stuff. Well, you know, we saw 2 of them died real fast, the Russians and the Chinese.
Which, that it didn't feel like it was just red shirts being thrown into the meat grinder. It felt like they put up a damn good fight, and their mechs were cool.
And the mechs were cool.
The Chinese guy had 3 arms. The Chinese mech had 3 arms. All of them buzzsaws.
Yeah.
That was badass. And the
Right.
Russians had rock'em sock'em robot arms with pistons, and it would just go. Okay, we're doing this on voice recording, but still, you get the idea.
Yeah.
It hit like jackhammers. Oh, it was so cool.
And the efficiency works in their favor there, because you've gotten used to this idea of, oh, I see little snippets of these characters and their details, and I know it's a much bigger thing. So you see the Russians, you know, like 3 sentences about them, but you get the impression there must be more to them, just like there's more to everything else.
Yes.
You know? Yeah.
And each Jaeger design was different, and that was so cool. They designed different Jaegers for doing different things.
Yeah.
And each one had different. Oh, geez,
Capabilities. Yeah.
Yes.
The freaking the moment, one of them I loved. I mean, so the huge battle, obviously, and then the one kaiju grabs us by the talons, morphs into a pterodactyl, flies into the sky, flies 50,000 feet. Apparently, he must have kept up on that for a while. And then. Like, we're running out of options. No, wait, we have this sword, and from a freaking sword, and all this coolness is already going on. And then she says, "For my family," in Japanese, and she's Japanese, and I have the whole history of Godzilla in my head, and like, they just put it all together. You know, it was like, it's like, in the name of all nerds, you know, we're slicing this thing in half.
By the power of Grayskull.
You know,
oh my God, this.
You know, it's absolute rule of cool. Absolutely.
There, of course, we wouldn't be us if we didn't point out the flaws.
I mean, just
Okay.
now I was thinking, gee, you could have used that sword earlier.
I would have told the other pilot about the fact that Gypsy Danger now has swords.
Yeah, that sounds important to know.
Yeah. Hey, why the fuck didn't you tell me that we had another weapon that we could have used? Why didn't we use that weapon earlier?
Why did we use the boat when we had a legitimate sword? The boat looked awesome, though. Again,
yeah.
rule of cool.
Okay, there's a scene where Gypsy Danger, the main Jaeger, beats a monster like a motherfucker with a boat.
And we're talking like a full cargo ship, like long, huge thing.
Let me say that again. He beats a motherfucking monster with a motherfucking boat.
Yep.
That is awesome. Okay. A few flaws I had. One, the aliens' motivations were a little too similar to that of the aliens from Independence Day.
And lots of other aliens, yeah.
But
it was basically we colonize places because we feel like it.
Yeah, which I will grant, they're going to other places and colonizing them for their resources is pretty much the main goal of colonization.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, that was one problem. Second problem, when they were in the aliens dimension, well, the whole reason the movie was building up to this huge invasion was going to be happening with hundreds of kaiju coming through at once, and it would exterminate the human race. Well, okay, Independence Day actually handled this one better.
Oh, yeah?
When Will Smith and the guy from Jurassic Park,
Goldblum?
yeah, Jeff Goldblum, are flying over in the ship, you can see like tanks, you can see rank upon rank of soldiers ready to go down and conquer in the name of their whatever the fuck they're called.
Nation, yeah.
Yeah,
Species.
you can see this is the threat we're going to be facing if we don't stop them right now. But we get down into the alien dimension and there's 4 alien guys.
Well, yeah, I mean, I kind of assumed the other kaiju were off screen or something. But yeah, it would have been nice to see like
that would have been the threat.
A whole mob of them.
And then like they would try to go after Gypsy Danger.
Yeah, they would totally jump on it, like eat its head or something. One of them
and then
swallows like the core and it blows up anyway.
Yes, yes, perfect. Okay, another problem. If all of these things are artificially created life forms, why the fuck was one pregnant?
You can artificially create a life form which is also pregnant.
But why?
So it would spawn a baby and eat more people while it was fighting, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, I know it's a little weak, but
it's weak, and they know that by this point that they should know by this point that the monsters are going to be opposed at every turn by Jaegers, and if not by Jaegers, by fucking guns. So yeah, okay, maybe like a later one would be pregnant.
Like after the main invasion force, you mean?
No, like they deploy like 5 at a time. Have 1 or 2 hold back and just gather resources and stuff, and then start spawning. But as it is, it didn't really feel like a.
It didn't quite make sense.
Yeah, it didn't make sense, especially since it's an artificial life form. You know how I thought of them? The sectoids. You don't know what I'm talking about.
No.
They're from XCOM.
Oh, okay.
Now there's 2 iterations of XCOM. One is the original one, and one is the new one, Enemy Unknown. In both versions, both UFO Defense, that's the original one, and Enemy Unknown, the sectoids are the basic enemy that you fight. Pretty much all the enemies are clones, or artificial life forms created by their higher-ups. A controlling brain in the case of Enemy Unknown, in the case of, not Enemy Unknown, in the case of UFO Defense, and the Ethereals in the case of Enemy Unknown. But they were artificially created life forms, and it showed it. They barely had any brain function aside from conquer in the name of my masters. They didn't have a digestive tract. They didn't have reproductive organs. They didn't have a lot of things that most creatures that we would consider alive to have, because they were stripped down to the bare bones to, well, be the perfect soldiers. Their hearts were augmented so that they could carry more oxygen to their brains and to their arms. Their muscles were augmented with carbon nanofibers or something. Which is why, compared to that, where these soldiers were literally bred for war, the kaiju being pregnant doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense, especially since it appears to be, first and foremost, a combat unit. Something that can get pregnant would seem to be a second line or support unit.
Yeah, I can see that. So there's something. We were pointing out. Actually, there's one positive thing I want to mention before I forget. No shaky cam.
Oh my God! Thank God! I did not even notice that.
I was thinking of that the whole time because I was
there
comparing
was
it to Man of Steel in my head, you know. And once in a while it would shake, but not in a way that bugged me. It wasn't like even in the slow scenes we're gonna shake the camera for the hell of it because the world is ending. No, give me these long, clean shots, you know, where I can take in all the detail. I got a lot of those.
Like the fact that Gypsy Danger was carrying a motherfucking dragging a motherfucking boat
Don't
to
shake it while that happens. Let me look at it, you know.
to beat the lunch money out of a kaiju.
Yeah.
And when they did apply shaky camera, it made sense to apply the shaky camera.
Right.
Like it was in the cockpit of a Jaeger that was being ripped apart by a frickin' monster.
Yeah. So that was cool.
Although I would like to know one thing. At what point did they decide to abandon weapons research on projectile weapons and go, you know what we need? Giant robots.
This is what I was about to get to, because the whole thing runs on rule of cool, and everyone knows like humanoid robot is just cooler than we shot 100 shells at the thing from beyond the horizon, you know.
You know what would have worked? Bolos. They're just basically football field sized tanks with super huge cannons.
Yeah.
Wow, and they like shoot really big shells and super powerful energy blasts.
Yeah.
Or better yet, just mount plasma cannons or other stuff onto big turrets all over the cities so that the next time the monster comes up...
Right. Like the plasma cannons that Gypsy Danger had. Though I wasn't sure of the range of those. He seemed to have to like punch it while he hit it. Was that the idea?
Well, I don't know. I also kind of got the idea that they were the kaiju were relatively fast moving and it would be hard to target them otherwise.
Yeah, but you could, you know... If at a distance, if you had a turret, you should be able to target, even if he is kind of fast. Right?
Yeah,
because you have the leverage in your favor. So yeah, the whole weapon system thing idea. You know, I mean, giant robots has never really made sense. In Evangelion, they had to invent the entire idea of AT fields and this whole like realm of physics to make it work. In Gundam, they had to invent the Minovsky particle to make it logically work, right?
And in Megas XLR, they just said, fuck it, chicks dig giant robots.
Right, and this was a little more on that side, but they managed to do it without, like, I mean, Megas XLR is great, but they didn't do the comedic side of it, you know, like that show did. What they did in this one was they just skipped over the intro. This intro happens is very quick. It's like, okay, so monster attack, and then we fought off with tanks, and then another monster attack, we fought that one off with tanks, and then we started building these giant robots and things because the tanks weren't working enough, and then it's like 10 years later, and we're doing great, and then we do have one scene, and then it's 5 years later after that, and we're like in the thick of it, you know? And I thought it was going to be like, it's a normal day, here's a guy and his family, and oh crap, it's a monster, and that's like kind of like 2012, you know?
Okay, first scene in the movie is a monster eating the Golden Gate Bridge and just saying, no, it's not even eating, it's just walking through it like, fuck their shit. Or just like, you can imagine him walking to work, just like, oops, I walked through a spider web.
Right.
And then later they show the Golden Gate Bridge is just fucking gone.
Yeah.
Well, the middle part is.
Yeah. So you could... Yeah, because they just skipped straight through all this intro stuff so very quickly, like in 5 minutes, you were swept into the premise of that world, and you didn't have to think too hard about like, wait, why don't they, you know, do something else? Now we of course are in the habit of thinking too hard, so we eventually did that anyway. And logically, there should be, you know, hundreds or thousands of jets just fly around whenever a kaiju shows up and just keep pelting it with missiles.
Or just, you know, Evangelion, even though it didn't work, they would line all these sides of the mountain with tanks, and they would just go...
Right.
And granted, it never fucking worked.
But they were trying,
But it showed in this one that sort of tactic could work because they pounded the shit out of it for days.
Right.
Also, the pilots in this movie were fucking morons. I know I'm swearing a lot.
He means the jet pilots.
The jet pilots, not the Jaeger pilots.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like these guys are like trying to be Rogue Squadron or something. Yes, I'm going to thread the needle between his legs. Oh shit, this was a mistake! No, here's what jet pilots do. You bomb the shit out of something from 50,000 feet where the monster cannot get you.
Right,
It can't reach out and go, boom.
Hey.
No. You use a Warthog, which is a plane built around a gun. No. You want to know what a Warthog is? A Warthog is several is a lot of tons of fuck you and fuck your shit. They strapped a plane to a gun. No, that is not exaggeration. They took a Gatling gun designed to rip the shit out of tanks, and they built a plane around it.
Yep.
Send some of those fuckers up against it.
And you could do it from range, is the point. I mean, A, you don't have to invent new tech, which is the Jaegers, and B, you can do it from range, and the monsters can't shoot you at 100 miles away, you know?
Yeah,
but you can.
we don't see monsters with ranged attacks until much later, near the end of the movie.
And even that's like, you know, what, a mile maybe? I mean,
maybe like half a mile tops.
Yeah.
And you know what outranges that? Missiles.
Right, and especially nukes. I mean, I was saying
yeah,
him,
but like at the same time, there are concerns about using nukes in populated areas like Hong Kong.
Yes, but the kaiju appear in the middle of the ocean. And I say, you know what?
Nuclear mines.
Nuclear mines around the rift for hundreds of miles in every direction. Kaiju wakes up, bang! He takes another step, bang! Like, how many nukes can you take? Because we have thousands left over from the Cold War.
Heck, you know what you should do? Just have aircraft carriers permanently stationed there.
Right.
Anytime that there's a new one, you just send out a plane with submarine, with like a submersible remote operated kamikaze nuclear warhead drone.
In other words, a missile or torpedo, really. It's torpedo.
Well, a torpedo.
A nuclear torpedo.
A nuclear torpedo that's homing.
A homing nuclear torpedo.
So, and just like send those out over and over again. And every time they send one out, you just keep doing it.
Right. So this is us, like, we're aware that some of this stuff doesn't make sense. But I think, you know, they have rule of cool. There's also rule of premise, I say.
Yeah.
And especially when they did the intro the way they did, and we were at that premise within 5 minutes, we use giant robots to fight monsters, you're like, okay, fine, I'll let that slide, you know? I will let that slide for the duration of this movie. Even though they use nukes later on to fix the whole problem.
But they were well outside of the populated area. Every time we fought it, they were either very close to a populated area or in an area where a nuke would do catastrophic damage.
Right, which they did some damage down to whatever.
They did damage, but
yeah. So the ending was neat.
But it was to bumfuck nowhere in the middle of the Pacific.
It was set up so a black guy. I feel like I'm not racist or anything. He's just the black guy of this movie.
We don't know names that well.
We don't know names. So much was happening, but so black guy he's dying anyway, and you figure, okay, he'll make the heroic sacrifice and blow himself up too.
It's even better.
There's the thing. Yeah.
You know what happens? The Australian jerk guy.
Yeah.
He goes with him, knowing full well that this is a one-way trip for him.
Right. And
knowing that I'm gonna jump into a fucking nuclear death zone.
Yeah.
Wormhole thing, and I'm probably gonna fucking die.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can see it when he kisses his dog goodbye. On the forehead, sickos.
I wasn't thinking that. That's your fault.
I did not survive middle school by ignoring any potential innuendo.
All right, there you go. Serve you well on the internet.
Yeah. But he kisses his dog goodbye. He says goodbye to his dad.
Yeah. Yeah, and they didn't, to make a previous point, they didn't jack that up, like, to a point where it felt silly. You know, like, really weeping a whole lot, you know?
Well, more silly than giant robots fighting giant monsters.
You know what I mean, though? Like,
I know what you mean. I'm just making fun of the fact that we're complimenting, it was so realistic in a premise that is basically rule of cool.
Yeah.
See, also, scene of the Jaeger beating a motherfucking kaiju's head in with a boat.
Yep. That's going to be a t-shirt. It probably already is.
I swear to God.
I will beat you with a boat. That could be a meme. I will beat you with this boat.
I'm going to beat the lunch buddy out of you with a boat. And there was the end scene. The scene I wanted the whole movie.
Oh, yeah.
Here's my tip. If you're going to see it, stay until the end of the credits.
Well, no, it wasn't after the credits. It was just stay until that one thing happens after what appears to be the end. It's only like 30 seconds into the credits.
But you will not regret it.
Yeah.
Or rather, you will, but it's in a way that you will enjoy.
It's... so we're talking about the ending, and you thought, okay, this guy, he's going to make a heroic sacrifice thing. But, then suddenly the jerk is redeemed. He sacrifices himself, but not in a way that fixes the world, because he has to blow himself up, and then we need to go blow ourselves up. And I personally would have thought this would be really cool if our main hero actually got killed in heroic sacrifice, because that never happens. They always want to keep him around for a sequel. And I thought, wouldn't that be so cool? He goes down and blows up and does not come back for the sequel. And then my second thought was, oh, if you want to keep him, here's the deal. He launches his pod, right? And he goes up through the wormhole thing as it's exploding. And then what happens is he gets lost in space and winds up on a third planet.
No. Here's how it should happen.
What?
He flies through the wormhole as it's destabilizing. Suddenly, he's completely destabilized, and then he falls out of the other end of the wormhole, and he's caught by Tony Stark, whose engines just re-engaged, and they crash down into New York City just after the Chitauri invasion.
Right.
Avengers!
Avengers is cool.
Oh, by the way, we saw an ad for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that looks good.
My favorite part of that ad was the guy's like, sounds like somebody really wanted our initials to spell out SHIELD. I was
Which,
like, yeah,
let's be-
lampshade Haney.
Let's be really frank, that is how a lot of comic book acronyms get
Oh,
their
yeah.
names.
Yeah, totally. But
Heck, S.H.I.E.L.D. have like three different names over the course of its run. And I just mean the different words just in their name. It's always been a shield, but just like...
back on Pacific Rim.
I'd have liked to see what Tony Stark would have done with a Jaeger.
I just said, yeah, no, that would be crazy. Though.
Yeah, I'm just imagining a Jaeger flying around with like the UD beams. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, nuclear reactor, that's nice. Oh, I just installed an arc reactor in the chest.
Yeah.
200-foot tall Iron Man, bitches.
But yeah, I tell you, I could have had the guy lost in space at the end, sort of presumed dead, and then he could come back in the sequel, which they're probably gonna make, and like freaking, he shows up with a different alien fleet, and we have like even better Jaegers now, people helping us or something. It'd be like the return of the king, not the Lord of the Rings. I mean, the return of that guy who was so awesome the first time.
Yeah.
And then he would reunite with Mako, and that would be like their big deal for the sequel. Like they find each other again, and this time, like actually kiss, which is great that they didn't kiss.
Yes,
at this movie.
precisely. It felt so much more natural that they didn't have a big kiss or
Right.
they had no sex. It was
Right.
very subtle and downplayed.
Right,
But it was
yeah.
present.
But
You noticed
it
it, but it
was
was not in your
So
face.
many other things would have made it like. They would have made her. She's already pretty sexy, but they would have like made it even more so. They would have
They
had
would
her
have
in her
included a
underwear at some point.
They would have included a boob window
Right.
in her armor thing.
Right, and then at the end they would have had to do like really intense make-out type of deal, and the camera would like spin around them for some reason.
They would have had her be a female Jaeger pilot, but it would be pink and it would have
Yeah.
obvious boobs,
Yeah.
despite
so-
it serving absolutely no purpose. No, actually better. Okay, that actually brings me to something. One thing I did not like about Gypsy Danger, and a lot of them, they didn't seem to have a lot of integrated ranged weaponry.
Yeah, they had a few missiles and stuff, but yeah, they didn't have a lot.
Yeah, I would have included more Gatling guns or like rail guns mounted in the shoulder. So like if
Yeah.
the monster is like slamming you into the ground,
Right.
or
right.
heck, try to miniaturize the plasma cannon technology.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if that's feasible in the universe, but
Okay,
yeah, that'd
yeah,
be
but-
cool.
But yeah, like try to integrate more. I like integrated weapons technology.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
why I like when Gundams use like their built-in head cannons.
Yeah.
No, not head cannon.
Yeah,
but,
yeah, head cannon, yeah.
But-
It is cool stuff.
I did think that the Australian mech was a bit of a shout out to Evangelion, the head shape.
You think so? Maybe. I have to go look at it again, I guess. But
And I did like the Chinese one. That did seem like another shout out to Evangelion, the single eye.
oh, I hadn't thought of that. I mainly was thinking of the 3 arms the whole time,
Yeah.
which is a cool thing again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we pretty much wrapped it up there. I mean,
Oh.
overall, pure real cool. I'll say again, if you're not excited at the prospect of robots fighting monsters, you might just think this is a crap movie. But if you are into that, this is the best giant robots fighting giant monsters movie I've seen in a long time.
In ever, for my case.
I mean, I have a soft spot for Evangelion and other anime, Evangelion and Gurren Lagann. If you're gonna talk about that. Yeah.
okay.
But at least, I mean,
This
among
felt
live
the most
action,
this felt the
yeah.
most real.
This felt real. This felt good. This felt, it's like what Godzilla should be, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
They took their little genre and they did a really good job with it. I think is my summary.
Precisely.
Right.
They just made a kick-ass movie with kick-ass direction, kick-ass characters, kick-ass mecha, and kick-ass fights.
Yep.
Everything about this movie kicked all of the ass.
Especially
Also, it had a
the kaiju.
scene where a giant robot beat the lunch money out of a kaiju with a boat.
I think we should end on that line. So,
Yes.
for our sign off then,
Okay, I'm Sith King,
and I'm Sonic Sons.
signing off.